The Atticus Institute is a possession movie where the US military tries to weaponize a demon during the Cold War. It's shot like a History Channel documentary so convincingly that people Googled whether it was real. And the fact that you've probably never heard of it is kind of a crime because the ending is genuinely messed up. It all starts off innocent enough. It's the mid-1970s and this guy, Dr. Henry West, is running a small research lab in Pennsylvania. His whole thing is testing people who claim they have psychic powers. You know, ESP, moving stuff through your mind, your local horoscope girly, all that. And for years, he's basically just been debunking frauds. Someone comes in saying they can read minds, and turns out they can't. Someone says that they can bend spoons. Turns out they're just bending spoons with their hands like a normal person. The team at this institute is getting pretty discouraged at this point because they've tested hundreds of people and no one's shown anything real. They'll get someone who can guess cards correctly like 30% of the time, which is barely better than by chance. West's colleagues are doing these tests with Zener cards, the ones with stars and wavy lines on them, and they're coming up empty over and over again. West's family is even starting to resent the institute because he's spending all of his time there for basically no results. Then, in September 1976, this woman named Judith Winstead shows up. Her sister, Margaret, brings her in because Judith's been doing things that Margaret can't explain and frankly seems terrified of. Judith looks completely normal. She's quiet, middle-aged, and kind of withdrawn. Nothing about her screams, "I have supernatural powers." But the moment she walks into the lab, weird stuff starts happening. She tells one of the assistants it's his birthday without anyone mentioning it. Which, okay, could be a lucky guess, but then they start testing her. And Judith is different. She sits down for the card tests and she just starts calling them out correctly. Star, circle, wavy lines, square. She's hitting them at a rate that's statistically impossible. The team's getting excited because this is what they've been waiting for. They move on to harder tests and they put a little metal wheel under a glass dome and ask her to move it with her mind. She does. She stares at it and the thing starts spinning and then stops when she wants it to stop. There are no tricks, no wires, nothing. This seems like the real thing. West is thrilled. He's finally got proof. He starts calling Judith their Nina Kulagina, which is the Soviet psychic that the KGB was supposedly studying at the time. He wants to run more experiments and document everything, and maybe finally prove that paranormal abilities exist. But Judith's behavior is getting stranger. During one test, she just goes blank and stares off into space and won't respond when they talk to her. And then one of the cards on the table bends by itself. Not like someone folding it, but it warps. West then calls a break because everyone in the room realizes something's off. They decide to monitor Judith overnight to see if anything happens while she sleeps. They've got this grad student Kenneth staying up to watch her on the security cameras. It's boring for hours. Kenneth's smoking cigarettes, nodding off, and probably regretting his life choices. But then, around 3 in the morning, something happens off camera. We don't see what, but Kenneth starts screaming and then there's this loud crash. When people come in the next day, Kenneth's gone, just quit on the spot and refuses to talk about what he saw, and he never comes back to the institute. At this point, Judith's sister Margaret disconnects her phone and disappears, just abandons Judith completely. So now the institute is stuck with this woman who has incredible powers, but is clearly not okay. They're trying to figure out what to do. West is conflicted because he knows something dangerous is happening, but he also has the scientific discovery of the century sitting in his lab. Things then keep escalating. Judith starts having these episodes where she screams in this voice that doesn't sound human. She lunges at staff members with strength that shouldn't be possible. She somehow knows personal details about people's lives that she couldn't possibly know. One guard's father gets attacked by a dog and Judith stares at him the whole day before, like she knew it was going to happen. Several researchers have family members get hurt in bizarre accidents. A cousin nearly dies in a car crash. A house catches fire. It's too many coincidences. People start quitting because they're convinced Judith is causing these things. West himself then starts falling apart. He's seeing a therapist and taking medication because he's so stressed. He tells his therapist he's scared for his family's safety, but can't explain why because everything's supposedly confidential. He's caught between wanting to help Judith and being terrified of what she's becoming. Eventually, West and his team decide that they can't handle this alone and they notify the military, which is a big mistake. The Defense Intelligence Agency sends this agent named Robert Coep to evaluate Judith. The moment he walks in, the whole atmosphere in the lab changes. And that's when we learn that the demon inside Judith seems to know that the government's there and it doesn't like that. They do a demonstration for Co-op where they ask Judith to draw what someone's thinking of. One of the researchers, Susan, concentrates on an object. Judith draws a 4-leaf clover instead, and Susan's confused because that's not what she was thinking of. Then Judith whispers something to her and Susan completely loses it, starts yelling at Judith and has to be physically removed from the room. And it turns out Judith drew the clover because Susan's dead mother was buried wearing a shamrock brooch, and Judith whispered, "You weren't there," because Susan wasn't present when her mother died. The demon reached into Susan's guilt and twisted it just to prove that it could. That's all the proof the government needs. They then take over the entire institute. Soldiers move in and the place goes on lockdown. Everything becomes classified. West and his team are basically sidelined. The military starts running their own experiments and they are not gentle about it. They're trying to figure out if they can use Judith as a weapon. This is Cold War paranoia at its peak. If the Soviets have psychics, America needs psychics too. They run all of these tests, they analyze Judith's blood and find compounds that shouldn't exist. They document that she can stop her own heart for 14 minutes and then restart it. They then try to make her locate Soviet weapons on maps. They bring in a dog and have her mess with its heart rate to see if she can kill on command. The dog nearly dies and everyone starts panicking. Throughout all of this, Judith's being kept sedated in a sealed chamber with armed guards outside. West objects to all of this. He keeps saying Judith's a human being and there are laws against what they were doing. One of the military guys literally responds with, "Who do you think makes those laws?" West then gets physically removed from the room when he protests too much. He's lost all control of his own lab. They then run this spectral photography experiment. They set up high-speed cameras and strobe lights to see if they can capture something on film. They start flashing lights at Judith and she starts convulsing. West, watching from the observation room, has a seizure at the same time for no medical reason. When they develop the photos later, there's this cloud-like shape exiting Judith's body during the convulsion. And that's when they finally understand. She's not a psychic. She's possessed. There's a demon inside her, and it's been there the whole time. Now the government has a new problem. They've got a confirmed demon, and they still want to use it as a weapon. They try to force it to cooperate through electroshock therapy and interrogations. They pump gas into Judith's chamber to keep her sedated, but nothing works. The demon won't follow orders. So they decide to try an exorcism, but not a normal one. They want to transfer the demon from Judith into a soldier that they can control. They've got this young corporal who volunteers to be the new host. They bring in a priest and set up this whole transfer ritual with electrodes and monitoring equipment. Judith and the soldier are both hooked up to the machines. The priest then starts the exorcism and everything immediately goes wrong. Judith thrashes and screams. The demon's furious. It attacks the priest first and throws him into a wall. He's out of commission immediately. The soldier starts convulsing. Someone yells to stop the transfer, and they pump gas into the chamber to knock Judith out. Then there's this massive surge of energy that knocks everyone unconscious and kills all the cameras. When people wake up, Judith slumped in her chair. The demon's gone from her body. For the first time in who knows how long, Judith is actually herself. She's confused and scared and asking what happened. And that's when Dr. Henry West walks into the chamber. Except it's not West anymore. The demon took him instead of the soldier. Judith sees West and begs him to help her. But West stares at her with these dead eyes, raises his hand, and stops her heart. He just kills her, and then he walks out of the facility and vanishes. The epilogue then explains that the government shut everything down and classified all of the files. Judith's body was buried in an unmarked grave, and West was declared illegally dead in 1982, but they never found him. The case remains the only instance of demonic possession officially recognized by the US government, and somewhere out there, Dr. Henry West might still be walking around with a demon inside him. So that's our story. But what makes this movie so damn scary? What makes it make people question if it's real? Because it almost looks a little too realistic. Well, here's the thing that actually makes this movie work. It doesn't look like a horror film. It looks like something you would find at 2 a.m. on the History Channel between a JFK conspiracy documentary and whatever weird content they're putting out these days. The whole movie is structured as talking heads and archival footage. People sitting in chairs being interviewed about events that happened 40 years ago on grainy 16mm film of lab experiments. There's official looking documents with classified stamps on them. There's none of that shaky handheld camera garbage where someone's running through the woods screaming at something that's definitely just a bedsheet. And the interviews are what really sell it. These aren't actors doing that thing where they're clearly performing for a camera. They're just people sitting there, talking normally about what happened at the Institute. West's daughter talks about barely remembering her father. Former lab assistants describe specific days and specific tests. A military guy discusses protocol. It's boring in the exact way real documentaries are boring, which is what makes it work. The film never breaks character. There's no moment where the mask slips and you go, oh right, this is fake. It maintains that dry, educational tone the entire time. Even during the scary parts, the framing stays formal. Security camera footage of Judith's chamber, official photos from experiments. Everything's presented as evidence, not entertainment. People finished watching this and immediately went to Google to look up Dr. Henry West. Not because they're stupid, but because the movie earned that confusion. And here's what makes it even better. The US government actually did run psychic research programs during the Cold War. There are declassified documents about it. So when this film claims to be a classified possession case from 1976, it sits right in that zone where you can't immediately dismiss it as impossible. But all of that only works if Judith is actually able to scare you. Rhea Kilstead plays Judith Winstead, and she's doing something I haven't really seen in possession movies before. She's not doing the full Exorcist thing where you're screaming and vomiting, your head starts spinning around. Most of the time, Judith just sits there, quiet, staring at nothing, and it's somehow worse. When the demon's active, Kilstead does this thing with her eyes where they go completely dead. Not rolled back, not glowing, but just empty. She'll be looking right at someone, but there's nothing human looking back. It's a stare that you would get from a shark or something that's deciding whether you're food. And she holds it. She doesn't blink. She doesn't move. She just watches, which is scarier than any special effect. The performance works because she keeps it restrained. When Judith does have an outburst when she's thrashing or growling, Kilstead never goes too big with it. She's not performing an exorcism for the back row of a theater. She's playing someone whose body is being used by something that doesn't quite know how to operate it properly. The movements are all wrong. The sounds are wrong, but it's all grounded in this woman's physical reality. And there's this part where Judith's strapped to a chair during one of the military experiments, and she just slowly turns her head to look at the camera and doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything dramatic. She just looks. And it's genuinely disturbing because Kilstead's managed to make Judith feel like she's not there anymore. The person is gone, and something else is looking out through her eyes. That's what makes the documentary format work here. If the possession was theatrical, the whole thing would fall apart, but Kilstead plays it real and subdued. So when you're watching the archival footage, your brain accepts it as documentation of an actual person deteriorating. And then there's what the government decides to do about it and how that affects the movie. Most possession movies follow the same path. Family discovers possession, family calls priest, priest does exorcism, demon leaves or it doesn't. The Atticus Institute goes a completely different direction because the moment the government shows up, everyone stops trying to save Judith and starts trying to use her. This is where the Cold War setting matters. The Soviets had programs researching psychic abilities. The Americans had programs researching psychic abilities. Both sides were genuinely trying to figure out if they could weaponize people's minds. So when the military sees Judith stopping hearts and moving objects and reading thoughts, they don't see a woman suffering under demonic possession. They see an asset. They see something that could locate Soviet missile silos or kill enemy targets from a distance. They don't see a human, they see a weapon. The ethics of this are completely insane and ultimately completely believable if we know anything about governments. Judith is essentially a prisoner being tortured to make a demon cooperate with military objectives. They're pumping her full of sedatives, running electroshock therapy, and keeping her in a sealed chamber under armed guard. West keeps objecting that she is a human being, and they keep overruling him because national security apparently means you could do whatever you want to your citizens. And the government's working from this assumption that they can control what's happening, that they can condition the demon to follow orders, that they can contain and direct an evil entity. The arrogance of that is staggering and again, completely realistic. You've got generals and scientists who think they can negotiate with or threaten something that's literally not even from this world, something that doesn't care about guns or authority or America versus the Soviets. It just cares about what it wants. Destruction, unbiased, malicious destruction. destruction. And that's what separates this from being every other possession film. The demon isn't being fought by faith or family. It's being studied by people with clipboards who think evil is just another problem that can be solved with enough funding and the right approach. And everything the government tried to do goes completely wrong. The exorcism scene is where decades of human arrogance collapse in about 5 minutes. They've got Judith strapped to a chair, a soldier ready to be possessed, and a priest doing the ritual, and military personnel watching with guns drawn. The plan is to transfer the demon from Judith into the soldier so that they can contain it, which is already an insane plan. But these are the people who thought they could make the demon locate missile silos, so expectations were low. The ritual starts and the demon immediately attacks the priest, just throws him across the room, and the soldiers start panicking. Someone's yelling to stop the transfer, and they pump gas into the chamber to knock Judith out. Then there's this energy surge that kills all the cameras, and everyone is knocked unconscious. When people wake up, Judith is sitting there looking confused, actually looking like herself for the first time in who knows how long. The demon is gone from her body, and she's asking what happened, where she is, and she is clearly terrified. Dr. West then walks into the chamber, and Judith sees him and recognizes him and starts begging him to help her because West was the only person who consistently argued she deserved to be treated like a human being. And West just stares at her with those empty eyes. Those same empty eyes we have seen so many times before in Judith. And he raises his hand and stops her heart. She dies instantly. Then he walks out of the facility and disappears into the night. The demon didn't go into the soldier they prepared. It took West instead. It killed the one person who might have actually cared about Judith and then escaped. Again, the film ends with text saying West was declared legally dead in 1982, but his body was never found, which means somewhere out there, he is still out there walking around possessed by a demon that the United States government tried and failed to weaponize. That is not a happy resolution to a movie. This is a nightmare with no ending. And all of that is to say, why does this movie work when found footage is usually a hot pile of garbage? Now, I'm not saying found footage is always bad. There's lots of great found footage movies, but you check out any of the streaming services, you'll also find there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of found footage movies that are horrible. And most of them are very, very bad. It's so bad that it's almost become a meme. Well, the Atticus Institute came out in 2015, which was deep into the found footage era where everyone was making cheap horror movies with shaky cameras. Most of those films were terrible, but this one did something smart by not pretending to be found footage at all. It's structured as a documentary about found footage. That extra layer of distance makes everything more believable because documentaries are allowed to be a bit boring and slow and technical, and the film commits to details that most horror movies would usually skip. The interviews aren't just people describing scary things that happened. They're former employees discussing their job duties, military personnel explaining protocol, Judith's family members talking about not seeing her for months because the facility was locked down. None of that is dramatic, but it's the exact kind of mundane information that makes you go, wait, did this actually happen? What really sells it is that this movie never tries to make you jump. There's no loud noises or fake scares. The horror comes from watching people slowly realize they're dealing with something that they can't control. First, the scientists can't control it. Then the government can't control it. And then the demon just wins and leaves. There is no hero moment, no last minute save, no power of love and friendship and anime conquering evil. Just a demon loose in a world because humans decided to poke at something they should have left alone. Film also benefits from people not having heard of it at all. If it was this major release with a big marketing campaign, everyone would know going in that it's fiction. But it's this obscure movie from 2015 that most people stumble across on streaming. You go in blind, watch what looks like a real documentary. By the time you realize it's a movie, your brain's already accepted half of it is real. Which brings us to why nobody has ever even heard of this thing. Again, the Atticus Institute had basically no marketing when it came out. It was a direct-to-video release with a generic DVD cover that looked like every other possession movie from that era. If you saw it on a shelf, you would assume that it was another cheap exorcism cash grab and keep walking. The film completely failed to communicate that it was doing something different, so it got buried under dozens of actually bad possession movies, and most people never gave it a chance. The early people that did watch it had mixed reactions. Some people thought it was boring because they were expecting jump scares and demon faces. Others watched it and immediately went online to research whether Dr. Henry West was even a real person. That's the split. If you're looking for a loud, scary horror movie, this will disappoint you. But if you're okay with a slow, documentary style film that builds actual dread through implications and unanswered questions, This is genuinely unsettling. What makes it worth watching right now is that it combines things that most horror films don't even touch. You get the possession angle, the government conspiracy angle, the Cold War paranoia, and the found footage format, all in one movie that's actually thought through. It's not just throwing concepts at the wall. The film uses each element to reinforce the others. The documentary format makes the possession more believable. The government involvement makes the documentary format more plausible. The Cold War setting makes the government involvement make sense. Everything connects, and the ending refuses to give you closure. West's possessed body is never found. Judith dies for nothing. The demon's still out there. The government buried everything and pretended it never happened. You finish watching and you're left with this uncomfortable feeling that nothing was resolved and nothing was learned, which is rare in horror. Most films give you some kind of happy ending, but this one just ends and leaves you sitting there going, well, that's kind of fucked up. And that's why I recommend that you need to watch this movie if you're a fan of my channel, because this is one of my favorite found footage horror movies that I've watched in the last decade. Anyways, if you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to give it a like and comment down below what other movies you'd like to see me talk about in the future. Also, if you want me to make more videos just like this, the number one way you can tell me that you want to do that is by subscribing to the channel, as it shows me that people are interested in seeing more types of this type of content. Also, feel free to hit the hype button on this video and click the video on the screen right now to watch another one of my videos.